of the guard position, where first of all, the premium, the top guy in the guard position available right now is Jalen Brunson. However, I would argue he's probably not going to be on the market for very long because of the fact that Dallas made it to the Western Conference Finals. So now you look at where else could they go. And there's two names that come to mind. Jeff, first of all, there's one that you and I have talked about a little bit already, Zach Levine. And that's the home run swing, right? That's if Troy Weaver wants to cash in and go win some games now. And Jeff, are we ready to go sign Zach Levine? I don't really think so.
No, hell no.
What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Thursday, June 2nd. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, what's popping, man? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, brother. Nothing much. I know this time of year, everyone's doing homework on the prospects. That's kind of what we've all been doing. Just looking up on prospects. You got the draft, the finals coming up. So honestly, if you're a basketball fan, you're loving it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, the NBA finals are starting. The NBA draft is coming up. It's that perfect blend of the offseason starting soon too. And with the NBA calendar, there's never not anything going on. And so with that, Jeff, today we're here to talk a little bit more. We're doing some NBA free agency talk this week. You know, obviously we on the pod, we talked quite a bit about DeAndre Ayton. I know in the past we've talked quite a bit about Jalen Brunson, but there's been some reports of some potential players that the Pistons could be having their eyes on. And obviously there are two names that you and I have already talked about. So let's just get those out of the way real quick. These are the premium high tier guys, right? Jalen Brunson at the guard spot. And then it's DeAndre Ayton at the center spot. But then you're looking at where they would go if they could not get those players. And reports say that the Pistons are interested in both Colin Sexton and Mitchell Robinson. Now, Jeff, I want to start with Mitchell Robinson because this is a guy that Pistons fans have been clobbering about for months now. Like, this is a guy that's been on our radar since the beginning of the season. Right. What do you think of Mitchell Robinson? What do you think he could bring into the Pistons roster day one?
Well, it's defense, and that's the obvious. Mitchell Robinson, I think in his career has averaged 2 blocks a game, and he shoots over 70% from the field, upwards of 60. So you're getting a damn good player for a reasonable price. That's the main thing. Everyone talks about DeAndre Ayton, paying him $30 million. Well, you can get Mitchell Robinson, from anywhere from 8 to 11 million, whatever he's commanding, because there's going to be other suitors. I mean, that's the reality of it. So with Mitchell Robinson, he's the only free agent out of any of these guys that I'd probably go for. If we're talking, cheaper, he fits the timeline. He brings what we're lacking in terms of, post defense, interior defense, another lob threat, of course. And somebody, just another big body. I mean, we don't have a 7'1" guy you can, like that's just the obvious. So I love Mitchell Robinson. I think that's the move. If you're going out, people talk about Mo Bamba, DeAndre Ayton. No, Mitchell Robinson. I mean, I get it. He hasn't stayed healthy, and that's the biggest question. But again, for what you're paying him, it's different. There's a difference between, giving a guy a max contract and wondering those questions. But if you're giving him, 2-3 year deal, I would rather take a swing on Mitchell Robinson. But I think he'd fit perfectly with the Pistons, honestly.
Yeah, he definitely would. Now let's talk about the trade backs, because we talk about what would be the step down, right? Because you're looking at DeAndre Ayton, that is the premium. That would be the guy that you would bring in, and you would expect him to be a top 5 center in the NBA day one, right? Mitchell Robinson, you would not have those same expectations. And I would say, first of all, offensively, he is a shell of what DeAndre Ayton is. I would say his offensive game is as follows. He can get to the rim, and you can lob it to him, and that's it. And he can make post up, like do basic post moves. However, this guy's not going to give you much else. He doesn't shoot threes. He just straight up doesn't. So as far as stretching the floor, he's not going to give you anything special there. This is very much a traditional big. And the other thing is he only averages about 25 minutes a game because he struggles with foul trouble a lot as well. So looking throughout his career, this is a guy that, he struggles to stay on the court both when healthy and also with injuries. So those are some of my question marks with Mitchell Robinson. I personally would say if you're going to pay the premium on any position, it should be the big, in my opinion, because if you can go and get that step up, because Mitchell Robinson is a high quality defensive player. And to your point,
Role player.
so,
Role
yeah,
player.
yeah, exactly. But that's exactly it, role player. And and here's the thing that's crazy, they're similar in age. Mitchell Robinson is 24. DeAndre Ayton's even younger. He's at 23. So, they both certainly have ways where they can grow. But in my opinion, one's shown you a lot more already. And I mean, frankly, he should. He was the number 1 overall pick, right? This is a guy who, who is, I don't even believe he might have been drafted in the first round, but I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you.
Second round pick.
What, second round pick?
Yep, Mitch Robinson.
Yep.
Yeah. Second round pick.
Yeah. So, a guy who's cut from that cloth, who comes in and works hard. He definitely looks like the type of big that would fit in a Troy Weaver or Dwayne Casey system. But what would you want to see from Mitchell Robinson as far as his growth in his game? Because we talk about, like, offensively, obviously, let's be realistic. He's not going to be Nikola Jokic, right? But do you think he can get to the point where, I mean, right now he's averaging 8 points a game. Do you think he can get to the point where he can average 12, 14, 15 points a game?
I think playing with a player like Cade Cunningham's obviously going to make you better. He's going to get more opportunities. But in terms of expanding his game, I think what he does so exceptionally well, and you kind of hit on what he already has to improve on. I mean, limiting the fouls, obviously expanding his offensive game, not shooting threes or nothing like that. But let's be honest, 90% of his offense was dunks and
Right.
2-footers. So maybe that. But again, I think you'd find success still doing that. I mean, you can get 10 points a game just off dunks and floaters, layups, whatever it is, and still shoot 60+%, and I'll take that. So,
Right.
I mean, if you ask me, what does he need to improve on? It's really offensively and kind of the ins and outs, like the foul trouble, the little things. I mean, what you're signing is what you're getting. You're getting Mitchell Robinson. He's going to be a role player. You're not expecting him to be, at least I wouldn't. And this team's winning and contending. I don't think he's not your starter. So
I don't think you're asking him to become this all-star level offensive player.
Absolutely.
I think it's just the thing. It's the same issue that Rudy Gobert has, in my opinion. And it's the thing that if they both, in my opinion, if guys like Mitchell Robinson and Rudy Gobert could both at least have the ability to put the ball on the deck if they need to, and score if they can get off the dribble. Because you look at Rudy Gobert, his shooting numbers plummet when he dribbles the ball literally more than a couple times.
Right.
If he only dribbles once and then gets to his hook, like if he's already in a spot, he's fine. He's borderline money. However, a lot of these big men, it's not even like having to do crazy dribbling. It's literally just being able to dribble if need be and create your own shot in the post. And that's the type of thing that can bring your game to the next level. So, looking at Mitchell Robinson, that's my thing. Defensively, other than foul trouble, and some of that could be mentally too, with just his IQ.
Oh yeah.
Some of that's just young and coming into the league. So I have no doubts that could get better. But I mean, if I look at what his ceiling could be, I could definitely see him being a JaVale McGee type big, where he comes into a team and could just be a championship level big, where he just fills his role, fits on the team, gets you points as need be, and does his job at every level. And we've seen teams win with a big like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you. That's why the whole, discussion over what you expect. And you got to understand too, even with Rudy Gobert, there's times where he's not playable. Like, look at where the NBA is going right now.
Yep.
If your offensive game is limited at the center position, he can't guard, point guards, 2 guards, 3, whatever it is, then you're going to struggle. And that's why Robert Williams III on the Celtics and Al Horford, these guys are so valuable, because not only do they play the center position, but they can switch on multiple guys. So I don't think Mitchell's your starter, but again, every team needs a guy like that. You just mentioned JaVale McGee. I mean, how many teams, especially recently, has JaVale McGee been a part of where he's played a big role? I mean, that's just kind of how it works with those guys. You need a guy like Mitchell Robinson, but again, you're not signing him. This isn't your big marquee signing. It's just filling needs for the Pistons.
Absolutely. Now, and again, I would argue that's where the value of a guy like Ayton comes in, because when you're looking at the small ball lineups that you're talking about, in my opinion, what I think sticks out is the fact that guys like Ayton can stay on the court in a lot of these situations.
He can punish these lineups. That's the difference. Like Mitchell, if you put him in a game and you're running small ball, I'm not expecting Mitchell to punish, anybody in the post. It's just not. It's a different game. So to your point, DeAndre Ayton, obviously much more expanded offensive game. So I see your point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, and that's where the premium, that's where the difference comes in. And then I think there's a little bit of a different conversation when going to the other side of the guard position, where first of all, the premium, the top guy in the guard position available right now is Jalen Brunson. However, I would argue he's probably not going to be on the market for very long because of the fact that Dallas made it to the Western Conference Finals. So now you look at where else could they go. And there's two names that come to mind. Jeff, first of all, there's one that you and I have talked about a little bit already, Zach Levine. And that's the home run swing, right? That's if Troy Weaver wants to cash in and go win some games now. And Jeff, are we ready to go sign Zach Levine? I don't really think so.
No, hell no. Well, I'll say this. I'll say the first
I would love it.
The first part of that hell no has to do with the fact that Zach Levine is not joining the Pistons. He wants to go to a contender, in my opinion. I mean, with Zach Levine, his mindset right now, he's banged up. He's been injured his whole career, hasn't played, nearly 82 games consistently. Right. He's just been in and out of the lineup. So that's a problem. If you're going to pay a max player, that's number one, especially a guy like Zach Levine. So I don't think it's going to happen, but let's just say theoretically he would come here. I still wouldn't, because I in my opinion, number one, you're going to draft a guard this year. That's what we all expect that. But number two, I don't know if the timeline with Zach Levine, he gets here, like you said, you're winning. You're going to try to make the play in the playoffs. You're going to make the playoffs. That's your goal. I just don't think the team's right there right now. You give it another year, and then you can go out and taking swings on these guys. But again, like, you're bringing Zach Levine to a roster who last year were bottom of the league in multiple categories. It doesn't sound like a good match to me. Let's say you sign Zach Levine. Who else are you going to sign? Mitchell Robinson, and then you're going to say, all right, guys, let's go. I mean,
well, yeah, no. It doesn't solve the issue either of at a certain point that just becomes very reminiscent to Pistons teams where you're just going to get to the 7th or 8th seed and there's not much of a ceiling beyond that, because you can go out and you can get a marquee guy, but now it's about the depth as well, right? That's part of what's important with the number 5 overall pick. You have the star and you have some of the guys that you think could be ancillary pieces or the beginnings of a core. Now you need to build a good roster. You need to get a good basketball team. Right. And so, and now with having salary cap, obviously now you have the opportunity, if you want to take a swing on these guys. But like you said, first of all, Zach Levine with his own injury stuff, he's had an arthroscopic knee surgery over the offseason, which we've heard that quite a bit with Blake Griffin in the past. And anytime I hear arthroscopic knee surgery, I squirm inside because yeah, I mean, because here's the thing about that, man. It's really tricky because it's non-invasive, but I mean, you're not what's non-invasive about a surgery, Jeff?
Right.
Like that's
and Sean, especially in a guy like Zach Levine, who's so athletic, and you've had that many knee surgeries, especially. Then he's had other things, little banged up things. So that's what worries me about Zach. He's still a bucket. He's going to be great. But again, if he comes to the Pistons, your number one option, and he's missing 40 games a year, I would love to see Pistons Twitter. I mean, they would be going nuts. That's just how it works.
Absolutely. 100%. But another guy that's been brought up, maybe someone that they could bring in a little cheaper, someone that's also potentially going to be on the market, is Colin Sexton from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, Jeff, this is a player that you and I have had some back and forth a little bit on in the past, talking about him as a player. And it's not that I'm low on him as a player. It's just I'm not as high as a lot of people are. And my argument with Colin Sexton is this. Listen, first of all, coming off of a knee injury, that's always something that's weird. You wonder what he's going to be. Obviously with modern medicine, you're seeing a lot of young guys recovering and coming back being just fine. However, you still can never rule it out. The other thing, Colin Sexton was able to put up, in his best season, he was able to put up 24 points a game and had pretty efficient numbers. And if you were looking solely at a box score, you would go, wow, that's really impressive.
What was the record though?
Exactly. And my question is, why is it that Darius Garland has numbers that looked almost the exact same and they're winning games? Now, obviously some of that's a guy named Evan Mobley, a guy named Jared Allen. Some of it's the team that they built around them. I concede. However, some of it also is that Darius Garland is a winning basketball player and is much more of a playmaker than Colin Sexton. Sure. Right. Some of the benefit of Sexton is he could come in and he's not going to be relied upon to do the playmaking, because that's why we have Kate Cunningham. However, Jeff, is this one of those young guys that we might need to just slow down on a little bit? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on Colin Sexton?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you there. Slow down on the Colin Sexton stuff. The only point I made too about Colin Sexton is I'd rather have him over Jalen Brunson. But again,
Right.
that doesn't. I mean, that's if we're talking, should they sign Colin Sexton? No, and I'll tell you a couple reasons why. Number one, the price tag. You're going to pay him $20 to $25 million. That's probably what he is going to have a ton of suitors. Or the Pacers, the Spurs.
Right.
I'm sure other teams are going to be involved as well with Colin Sexton. The Cavs, obviously, and he wants to return to Cleveland, but we'll see how that goes. But he's restricted, by the way. So if a team wants to get him, you're going to have to overpay for him. That's how that works. You're going to have to pay enough to where Cleveland's like, I'm not matching that. But the second part of that is when I look at Colin Sexton, I look at his ceiling, and people can call me crazy. I see him succeeding most in a Tyler Hero type role.
Yeah.
That's the role I see for him now. Do I want to pay him $20-25 million to do that on my team? No. But I will say this, because how early we're in the rebuild, number one. We're not trying to contend or nothing like that right now. But with Colin Sexton, it's the playmaking. It's the even the year he averaged 24. The reports were coming out that his teammates were frustrated because he was taking too many shots, like poor timely shots. So I think I don't like the fit. I would much rather them draft a Jaden Ivey, whoever it is this year, and let's just say let's roll rather than going and spending it, money on a Colin Sexton. So I would say no to Colin as well, but I'm sure he'll get paid somewhere. That's how it works.
That's really what it comes down to for me. You really kind of said it, because with Colin Sexton's overall ability, I don't question that he can score the basketball. I don't question he can slash to the rim. I don't question that there's a lot of things he can do well. But like you said, we have the number 5 overall pick. If we have the opportunity to go get Shaedon Sharpe or Jaden Ivey, why would we take
on a rookie deal?
Why would we sign? Why would we go overpay for Colin Sexton when we have the opportunity to go get a guard that is just as good, if not possibly better, for cheaper in the draft, who doesn't have the knee injury?
I know. And that goes back to the same thing we've been talking about, not only in these videos, Sean, but the podcast itself. This free agency class, we're overrating them. And it's not a bad thing. There's some good players in this free agency class, but to pay a Colin Sexton or Zach Levine, there's just not a lot of great options to me. So again, Pistons fans, I get it. You have money to spend. It's exciting. But again, you just have to the time will work. It'll work itself out. Troy will find a move. He'll find some way to acquire that guy, or maybe it's in the draft. You don't know. So don't go out and pay Colin Sexton $20-25 million for 4 years, because then if he messes up the chemistry or whatever the case may be, I'm not saying he will, but now you're stuck with him. And that's not something I'm willing to deal with, especially with this regime. I have so much confidence in Troy Weaver. I just don't think he's going to do that. Even though there's interest. Wasn't there interest in Fred VanVleet last offseason as well?
Right.
So it's like, this stuff will all quiet down.
Exactly. And I think that's important to recognize and to remember. And, ultimately, again, and if ultimately Troy Weaver brings him in, I mean, hey, that would mean either we make a trade or we sign him on a pretty decent deal. It depends on what his value is going to be, and that's going to be the tough thing. Is going to be what our team's going to gauge Colin Sexton's value to be, because it could really be all over the place. But I do expect him at the end of the day either going back to Cleveland, or I could even see the Knicks taking a swing and really trying to build something around RJ Barrett as well. But again, I just think there's better options available in the draft at the guard spot, and I think with Jalen Brunson not being on the board, the best guard in this free agency class by far, that's just going to be one of those things, he's just,
Don't let him get away with that. Comment down below how much you hate Sean for that statement, please. You can't let him just slide by with that.
What do you think about the free agency pool for the Pistons? Do you think the Pistons should go out and get some guys like Mitchell Robinson, or do you think they should go out and get the big swing like DeAndre Ayton? Let us know in the comment section down below. That is going to do it for today, folks. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.